I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them.
On April 2nd, Donald Trump declared a national emergency imposing sweeping tariffs.
For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike.
To do this, Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. These measures, according to the White House, are aimed to increase the competitive edge of the United States, protect sovereignty, and strengthen the national and economic security. The decision has sent ripples across financial markets, ignited responses from affected countries, and raised concerns about inflation and supply chain disruptions. This video will provide a detailed analysis of these tariffs, their implications for the U.S. and global economies, and potential long-term effects. The first is a universal tariff of 10% imposed on all goods imported into the United States, going into effect on April 5th. Higher reciprocal tariffs will be applied to countries with which the U.S. has significant trade deficits. These tariffs will take effect on April 9th. The specific rates include China, 34%, in addition to a pre-existing 20%, totaling 54%. Vietnam, 46%. Taiwan, 32%. India, 26%. European Union, 20%. Japan, 24%. Australia, 10%, despite a long-standing free trade agreement with the U.S. Indonesia, 32%. Switzerland, 31%. South Africa, 30%. Pakistan, 29%. South Korea, 25%. Thailand, 36%. Bangladesh, 37%. Sri Lanka, 44%. Developing nations, e.g., Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, nearly 50% tariff rate hikes. The tariffs are set to remain in effect until Trump determines that the threat imposed by the trade deficit and underlying non-reciprocal tariffs are resolved. As countries threaten to retaliate, Trump is set to increase the tariff if trading partners retaliate, or decrease the tariffs if the tariffs imposed on the United States are lowered. The reciprocal tariffs do not apply to certain goods, including copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber, gold, energy, and certain minerals that are not available in the United States. Following his remarks, Trump also signed an order to close a trade loophole used to ship low-value packages, those valued at $800 or less duty-free from China. This loophole is known as the de minimis. The order covers goods from China and Hong Kong and will take effect on May 2nd. The White House said that the move was intended to curb the flow of fentanyl into the United States. Earlier in the day, the Trump administration also announced a separate 25% tariffs on auto imports. This is set to take effect on Thursday. Trump earlier imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, but is also expanding them to include canned beer and aluminum cans. As for Canada and Mexico, the existing 25% tariffs on the goods and services not under the USMCA agreement remain. Energy and potash from Canada will be subject to a 10% tariff, while those goods under the USMCA agreement remain tariff-free. Cuba, Belarus, North Korea, and Russia are not subject to Trump's new reciprocal tariffs, as they are already facing sanctions which preclude any meaningful trade. The announcement led to immediate reactions in financial markets. U.S. stock futures declined sharply, with the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF dropping 2.8% in aftermarket trading. Investors expressed concerns about potential inflationary pressures and disruptions to global supply chains. Economists warn that the tariffs could lead to increased consumer prices. The additional costs imposed by tariffs may be passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for imported goods. Sectors reliant on imports, such as electronics and automobiles, may experience significant price increases. Governments around the world have pledged countermeasures on America after the announcement of tariffs. In the European Union, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU is finalizing a package of measures in response to the tariffs on steel, and is now preparing for further countermeasures to protect the interests and businesses should negotiations fail.
I agree with President Trump that others are taking unfair advantage of the current rules, and I'm ready to support any efforts to make the global trading system fit for the realities of the global economy. But I also want to be clear. Reaching for tariffs as your first and last tool will not fix it. This is why from the outset we have always been ready to negotiate with the United States to remove the remaining barriers to transatlantic trade. At the same time, we are prepared to respond. We are already finalizing the first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel, and we are now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail. President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow.
China's Commerce Ministry said Beijing firmly opposes the reciprocal tariffs and will take countermeasures to safeguard its own rights and interests. Japanese Trade Minister Yoji Muto called the reciprocal tariffs extremely regrettable and said Tokyo would urge the Trump administration to exempt Japan from tariff measures.
私自身がトランプ大統領に直接話しかけていくということが適当であれば、最も適当な時期に最も適切な方法で働きかけてまいるということを全く躊躇するものではございません。
In South Korea, the acting president Han Duck-soo ordered emergency support measures for affected businesses. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada was going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures and would act with purpose and with force.
We are going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures. We are going to protect our workers, and we are going to build the strongest economy in the G7. In a crisis, it's important to come together, and it's essential to act with purpose and with force, and that's what we will do.
In Mexico, President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Wednesday that Mexico would not pursue a tit-for-tat approach on tariffs but would rather announce a comprehensive program.
Tomorrow, we are going to announce a comprehensive program. What we are going to announce is not a tit-for-tat on tariffs. We are interested in strengthening the Mexican economy.
For Australia, the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said Australia would seek to negotiate with Trump to remove the tariffs without resorting to a dispute resolution mechanism in the two countries' free trade agreement. He said his government would not impose reciprocal tariffs as this would increase prices for Australian households.
The unilateral action that the Trump administration has taken today against every nation in the world does not come as a surprise. For Australia, these tariffs are not unexpected, but let me be clear, they are totally unwarranted. President Trump referred to reciprocal tariffs. A reciprocal tariff would be 0, not 10%. The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend. Today's decision will add to uncertainty in the global economy, and it will push up costs for American households. It is the American people who will pay the biggest price for these unjustified tariffs. This is why our government will not be seeking to impose reciprocal tariffs. We will not join a race to the bottom that leads to higher prices and slower growth. We will stand up for Australia. We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters. Our existing free trade agreement with the United States contains dispute resolution mechanisms. We want to resolve this issue without resorting to using these, as we do support continued constructive engagement with our friends in the United States.